It's now emerged that officers who responded to Calocane's rampage described how the victims had been, and I quote, proper butchered. Grace's father, Dr. Sanjoy Kumar, described the comments as disgusting, saying that the message is as barbaric as the crime for me. Well, Barnaby's mother, Emma Webber, says that she had hoped to send the officers involved a private letter explaining why she found the messages so traumatic. But speaking to Times Radio this morning, she claims that the Chief Constable of Nottinghamshire Police has prevented her from doing so.
Once we did find out about the WhatsApp group and we read the message that we asked to see that is so disturbing, very shortly following that, towards the end of February, the Chief Constable shut down and has sent emails saying that she's not able and will not be responding to any further inquiries. And I've also, when we've met recently with the Home Office, when we've met with the IOPC with regards to the complaints and the Police Crime Commissioner, I've raised this to say, look, if you're in communication with them, I just want these people, these human beings, these police officers, to take a moment and understand the impact that that language had.
Well, the victims' families have also criticised the force's disciplinary procedures after it decided to conduct misconduct hearings over the WhatsApp messages behind closed doors. Well, the families only became aware of them after they were reported by a newspaper. Time and time again, these families have been failed by this police force. I think when I initially read this story this morning, I didn't think that the words used necessarily were as bad as now I understand them to be from the perspective of the families. I think in my mind I was like, oh, how would I talk in a WhatsApp group? Obviously not under the same circumstances, but I understand that colleagues perhaps who are quite desensitised, as police often can be, might have stupidly and thoughtlessly have swapped messages like this. But then for the police to block out the families, to not tell them that these men had actually, or a person had been disciplined, not had that open line of communication with the family, it's no wonder they feel isolated. I think the mother, well, all of the families are incredibly brave. The mother in particular saying, look, I don't want anyone to be vilified. I don't want anybody to be publicly shamed over this. I just want them to get the message that actually, and she's absolutely right, and I certainly learnt a lesson from this story, which is, as much as you might comment on this story, it is not your son, it is not your daughter. And actually, in the world that we live in, where WhatsApp messages can be shared, newspaper articles are written, those messages can get back to the families.
Isn't
You've
the
got
problem,
to be careful.
But because all of that is correct, and I don't think any of us are going to dispute what it must have felt like if you were the family to read that. But the difficulty here is that what would previously have been said in a corridor or a canteen or sitting in a police car is now committed to the digital world,
forever,
because that's how people now communicate. If you've ever heard a couple of lawyers discuss rape, for example, it sounds horrific, as if there is no understanding. But of course, in that world, you divorce sentiment and you are talking about the legality of something, not about the emotional aspects of it. And I think with this, you'd find police officers on a daily basis talk about, oh, they probably slashed him up, you know, or something like that, would be said all day long. But the minute you write that down, it looks horrendous. And if you are the parent who's got to read it, then it's, you know, triply so.
I think I'm less forgiving than both of you on this. The word butchered, I mean, you know, you're a parent now, most of us around here, the idea you've lost a child in these most horrific of circumstances, and then someone in a position of authority and involvement in the crime describes it as a butchering. It is so grotesque. It is. I'm normally one to downplay, you know, hurty words, but this is another level, isn't it? It's like the victim was an animal.
Yeah, I completely.
But aren't they saying that the perpetrator was an animal? And
but it was the way
this was as bad as it gets.
But it was the way they said proper butchering, like they were relishing it. That was what was so disgusting about it.
I agree.
But then that's just reading it from a WhatsApp conversation, and as Ian says, saying it face to face, their sentiment may have been, oh my God, this was horrid. You should have seen it. It was absolutely horrendous. Seeing it in black and white makes a difference how you would say it face to face.
Oh, yeah,
and I think,
see that.
Yeah, and I think it's difficult to.
You can't tell the tone, actually.
You can't tell the tone, yeah, you can't tell the tone.
Was it out of shock, just the horror of it?
There's an element of trauma to that and sharing it.
And I'm sure if those police officers thought, oh, this conversation will be seen by the victims' families, they wouldn't have spoken that way. They thought it was a conversation between each other.